The future of cinema, a controversial topic that's becoming more and more relevant as time goes on, with many agreeing that the main cause of the argument is the overabundance of superhero movies within recent years. The most recent example actually comes from Ben Affleck, saying, quote, "I think movies in theaters are going to become more expensive, eventized. They're mostly going to be for younger people, and mostly about, hey, I'm so into the Marvel Universe, I can't wait to see what happens next. And there'll be 40 movies a year theatrically. Probably all IP, sequel, animated. But just how much truth is there to what he's saying? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out. In today's video, we'll be discussing the future of cinema. As an aspiring filmmaker, as well as a fan of the superhero movie genre as a whole, it's really no surprise that what Affleck said caught my attention. Upon further examination, though, I can honestly say that I understand why he came to his conclusion. Every other month we have a movie based around comic books or some other really popular property. But I feel like Affleck's, as well as other filmmakers' main concern, though, isn't so much the sole fact that these movies exist, but what they might mean for the future of smaller scale movies. The fear is that those movies won't receive as much attention or praise because studios won't see as much market value within them the same way they would in a Marvel or DC movie, meaning that those movies wouldn't get a theatrical release and just be sent straight to streaming services. Some directors like Martin Scorsese and Ridley Scott have famously, or should I say infamously, come up with their own take on this issue, with Scorsese saying that he believes that superhero movies, quote, aren't cinema, and with Ridley Scott saying that he thinks that they are, quote, fucking boring. Well, whatever that even means, it tells us that superhero movies clearly aren't loved by everyone. I can understand these movies not being your cup of tea, but to have a full-on negative opinion about their very existence is just kind of weird to me. I can agree that maybe there's too many superhero films that come out way too frequently, but I can also kind of understand why that is the case. During the Great Depression, the American people had little to no hope for their everyday lives. Finding a good and honest job, eating a warm meal, and even having a warm bed to sleep in seemed like just another distant memory. It was one of the most hopeless times in the country's history. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a second, why are you talking about the Great Depression? We were talking about superhero movies. Well, this topic is relevant, because you know what was one of the few things that kept up people's spirits during the Great Depression? Comic books. No, I'm not kidding. Back then, comics were way cheaper than they are now, and they were one of the few affordable things that Americans could buy during the times of such great financial hardship. Those comics, though, had so much more than just muscular men in tights. They had hope. Seeing these larger-than-life characters was more than just a simple distraction. They gave not only hope, but inspiration to the American people. Inspiration to work hard and push past the trying times they found themselves in. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the comic book industry single-handedly ended the Great Depression, but what I am saying is that superheroes being popular in American culture isn't something that's even remotely new. We just found a new way to show our love for these characters that brought us hope, which is why I ask, in a world with overwhelming divide, political turmoil, and rapidly spreading disease, is a little hope so wrong?
Everybody loves a hero.
People line up for them, cheer them, scream their names, and years later they'll tell how they stood in the rain for hours just to get a glimpse of the one who taught him to hold on a second longer.
Especially when it's presented in an almost universally accessible manner, like film. The way I see it, superhero movies aren't just for fun, but they're necessary. We need these larger-than-life movies to show us the brighter side of life. So much so that even filmmakers like Jodie Foster, who claimed she also hated superhero movies, later came out and revealed she actually had a change of heart, going as far as to say that they're fabulous films, praising movies of the likes of Iron Man and even Black Panther. She even went on to say that there's enough space for everybody in these movies, and she's absolutely right. They always say movies create a world meant for you to get lost in. Well, why get lost in a world when you can get lost in a whole universe? Superhero movies are fun and great, and they're going to be around for a long time. But does that mean that the concern they cause is warranted? Well, yes and no. Yes, because it's reasonable to believe that something widely popular is going to affect the landscape for smaller things to prosper. And no, because, well, in short, nothing lasts forever. Obviously, there is no right opinion to have on superhero movies, but if there's any filmmaker out there who I think actually has the best take on them is the one, the only, the greatest of all time, Mr. Steven Spielberg. Spielberg has made his opinion on the superhero genre very public, and unlike a lot of his peers, he actually really likes them, praising films like Richard Donner's Superman, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, and even James Gunn's The Guardians of the Galaxy. But one thing he went on to talk about was how he believes the superhero genre will, quote, go the way of the Western. For those of you who may not know what he means by that, just simply ask yourself, when was the last time you went to see a cowboy movie? There was a time in American pop culture where cowboys were actually the big thing in Hollywood, until eventually the genre just kinda died out. Spielberg believes that superhero movies will ultimately have the same fate, but he said that he doesn't think they'll stay dead forever, and that it's very possible that they could come back. After all, there's no reason to not give them a second chance, when that time inevitably does come to make that decision if we're going to do that as an audience. I honestly think that that's a pretty fair assessment of superhero movies. I just don't understand why there has to be such a black and white mentality about the genre as a whole amongst veteran filmmakers. I can respect Martin Scorsese and Ridley Scott's opinion on the matter, as they're just concerned for the future of the art form that filmmaking is. But I don't think it's as simple as these movies aren't cinema or that they're not art, because, newsflash for ya, art is art. Even if some superhero films aren't better than others, that doesn't make them any less art than their predecessors. Some people think that the Mona Lisa is the greatest painting of all time. So does that mean that the creation of Adam painting is not true art? Not at all. You want to know why? Because from the get-go, that's a stupid question altogether. They're both art, just different kinds, with no definitive quality that ensures one is better than the other. It'd be like asking someone, what's a better movie, Casablanca or Spider-Man No Way Home? That's not a realistic question to ask or answer because they're both so vastly different from one another. Which is why I just don't understand what filmmakers mean when they say that superhero films aren't art, because art is entirely arbitrary. This is how we know that superhero movies aren't going to take over Hollywood, at least not forever. As much as we like these big-budget, action-packed films, moviegoers still have love for the smaller and more personal stories that filmmakers want to tell. It's ultimately what brings us together, whether it's the next Endgame level movie or an indie film as a whole brings people together. Regardless of race, gender, or any other trivial matter you can think of, when we sit down in those seats, we're all enjoying a story together. Who cares what studio made the film? Who cares what genre it is? As long as it brings people together like it's supposed to, then that is the true art that everyone needs. Well, that's all for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I upload a new video. But other than that, guys, thanks again for watching, and have a great day.